Okay.
with the suspension raised
Okay.
to the top of Stone Mountain
Wow.
to visit a winery there that one of our agents has listed.
They had an open house.
They had brokers open.
Yeah.
And we had wine and snacks and toured the place, and the views are incredible.
I saw photos on Amanda Spagoni's page, Donna Patton's page. I'm like, what are these agents doing? Are they working up there? Are
Yeah.
they having fun up there?
You know, every once in a while, you got to work in ways that are fun.
So tell us about that listing.
I don't
Bring
remember the
volume.
price.
Yeah.
It's this gorgeous winery that is up with a view that is amazing. Beautiful wedding spot. Has a offset house with 2 bedrooms, loft above, so it could be an owner occupant. They currently do about 6 weddings a year because they just want to keep it limited and quiet. But an awesome opportunity for somebody that wants to expand that and have good winery up in a place where there's almost no mosquitoes because
Yeah.
you're that high up. And it was fun to drive up and have the temperature drop.
How much did it drop?
It was 5 degrees cooler up there was this Wednesday?
So was it 98 to 93?
I think it was 86 to 81, according to my car,
That's noticeable.
with a lot less humidity.
Keith Smith says, go QB, go. Emily Ann Coulter, the fantastic mortgage broker watching the program. Hello, Emily. Thank you for joining us on the show. All right, let me throw some stuff. Ashley Butler, welcome to the program. I believe the car marketing director, right?
That would be correct.
Ashley Butler, good morning to you. Your husband, Justin, is fantastic people. So, Quinton, Keith Smith, watching the program. We love you, Keith. We miss you, Keith. Tremendously miss you, Keith. Sent us an email this morning. And when I read it to prepare for the show, because everything you send me, Keith, I read from start to finish, I swear.
I forgot you sent me the email, but it's not because I don't love you.
The 30-year fix with good credit, and Emily Coulter, jump in here, please. The 30-year fix with good credit is below 5%.
It is.
We have
Rates
to highlight
come down.
this, right?
Rates have come down.
Because the national news has done a great job of highlighting the rise of rates. Can we with the same momentum highlight the drop in rates, please?
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things we suffer from is we really want to educate people.
Right.
And it's often the bad things that seem to change the market faster and that clients have a harder time, buyers and sellers have a harder time wrapping their heads around. So we often say those to the detriment of the many good things that are going on. And so it's nice to have something that's easy for people to grab that is a real positive. Those rates coming back down under 5.
So impact that you're going to see from that. Are we going to see some refinance impacts? Are we going to see some potential buyers that were priced out of the market getting back in the market? I mean, a drop in rate of 1 point is a pretty significant savings for buyers.
And I'm not sure it's a solid point, but it's still an opportunity to recognize that the market operates affected by the economy, but also separate from the economy.
What do you mean by that?
So, way back in the days of low rates when banks were being flooded with refi applications, there was a 2-month period where they bumped their rates 1.5 points just to slow it down because they couldn't handle the volume. There's a lot of stuff happening in real estate right now that has nothing to do with the real estate, but is affecting it from outside. And I just want people to remember that the real estate's still an independent market. And so it still does its own adjustments as time goes on. Those often come from sellers, price drops, and changes in market rates that banks are going to do to help moderate that volume both up and down.
Ashley Butler says, I love the floral shirt. Quinton,
Thank you, Ashley.
And she loves the show. Interestingly, we have a handful of mortgage brokers watching the program, guys. I'd love to hear from you guys on the drop in rates and the expectation it could have, Emily, on impacting your business potentially. Scott, the impact it would have potentially on your business or is having on your business. Talk to us about the temperature on the street here, with your agents, with inventory, with what's moving in the market.
So if you go back in time pre-pandemic, before the market was accelerating, let's say a couple years after the crash, you were starting to see price reductions back then on about 1 in 6 homes. During the peak of what we were doing, you only saw price reductions on about 1 in 12. In the last month, we're seeing price reductions on about 1 in 7.
Well, that's a good stat.
So you're starting to see the market, the sellers, the neighborhoods sort of wrap their hands around this changing market, bringing it down so that they can move forward, and really understanding all of those dynamics. It's complicated sometimes when you're talking to folks that maybe have raised a child in their home, or they have all these memories associated with it, and we're trying to turn it back into a product that they sell. And if you were on the market just 4 months ago, you started in a completely different market than if you started 4 weeks ago.
And does everybody realize that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so.
You're the barometer of knowledge here. You're educating us.
And so, we often talk about, trusted counselor. And so part of this is not to devalue all of the personal memories that you have in the house, but to really focus on, yes, we know price and money is always a thing. It's how the world operates. It's important to us when we buy and sell. So we know that. What are your other goals? How important are those to you? What's your timeline that you have to move? Let's remember that those play a part in it. I know personally in my history in real estate, if I've ever had a client be unhappy with me, it's for one of two reasons. And one was that I didn't communicate well enough. Maybe I got busy, or maybe I forgot to say something, or I didn't educate well enough. And so I do think for real estate agents, for lenders and mortgage officers, and for clients, really spend that time talking about everything as it matters today. We've been talking a lot about interest rates going up. People are talking a lot about recessions. And then we just got this job report that is great, and you saw interest rates come down. Yes, inflation is a thing, but we've already had our inflation in the housing market. That was so last week. And so really sit down, and if you've been on the market for 3 or 4 months, have your agent come over and have a cup of coffee and really talk about, hey, we've been on for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months. What do we need to do to sell?
You're seeing DOMs with 60 days?
Yes.
Wow.
The average days on market is climbing. Remember, averages and medians means we got somewhere over here and somewhere over here.
Sure.
And the higher the price point, the longer it takes, generally speaking.
Sure.
And in my memory, whenever we have a big market shift, everybody sort of pauses for a second. When you first feel the earthquake start, you just stand still.
Yeah, you freeze.
You just freeze for
It's
a minute.
paralysis of analysis.
And I think we've been moving through that. And now that we know things are changing and we understand that there's a lot of volatility still in the market, but there is this path forward. There's good mixed in with the bad. Take a deep breath. Remember that price is important, but within that box, sort of set that aside and think about, what are your goals? Do you need to move for a job? Is this about a family member? Is it a change in your personal status? What are you searching for to move on to have your next best life? And how important is that to you? Is it worth giving up $5,000? Is it worth negotiating for a home inspection? Is it worth repairing something? And odds are, in the grand scheme of things, it is. We tend to paint these things with different values when we're talking about selling a house because our egos get wrapped up in it.
Of course. It's emotional.
Our neighbor sold 6 months ago, and he's going to make more money than you did. Odds are, if the houses are pretty identical, they just made more money, different timing.
Yeah, different market.
Different market. And so just sort of take a deep breath. Think about that. If you need to have a Friday night at Tavola's bar, having a drink to get over it, and then meet with your agent and your counselor again on Monday, do that. There's really good things still out there. I think we talked about this on Monday. I don't care which lottery I win, they're both wins. And if I'm complaining about a 5% difference, probably need to rethink it for myself. And sellers are still in this great position. They just need to remember that there's some bumpers on that, and try to move in between those bumpers and move on with your life.
Great take. Quinton Beckham. There you go. That was excellent. Throw this question to you. You've been in real estate a long time. Have you seen a market shift this quickly? The last shift this quick was in 2008, 2009?
Well, yes, but remember that
They're not the same.
they're not the same,
Yeah.
but all markets, when we're talking about a shift towards a decreasing price point, in economic factors, in the total market, in real estate market, drops drop fast and climbs climb slow. The amount of increase we've had during the pandemic that took 30 months. If at any point we lose that, I can almost promise you it will drop faster than 30 months. I don't see anything on the horizon that tells me we're going to lose it, but we're going to see a lot of these climbs be way more moderated, and some of the really great prices that people got because of competition, you don't have as many people in the market.
You got a lot of comments coming in here. Emily's got one for you on the bond market. I'll read it for you. Yes, the bond market rallied when the Fed fund rate increased because they like to see the Fed try to combat inflation. However, it's a roller coaster day to day, so I prepare my client accordingly. I keep their eye on the prize and educate them about why this is still an amazing time to buy. I help them see the opportunity. Keith, for you, question for QB. What do you know today you wish you had known 10 years ago? When it comes to this market and beyond.
So Keith, that's a huge question, so I'm going to take your question second. Emily's completely right. And if you go to her page, she's got some great points for buyers about the higher rates that they're paying also gives them leverage for negotiating possession, dates, seller-paid closing costs. We're seeing contracts come through with features in them that we haven't seen for 2 years. And so there is always an upside. Just remember that it's the pendulum, and if you're over the age of 30, life has thrown you curves, and you've had to find the upside to it. This is no different. So
the 20-year-olds get the curveballs too.
Well, yes, I'm just saying I can guarantee you've had one if you've reached 30.
Yes.
If you're 20, 50-50.
To be determined.
Yeah.
To be determined. Grayson on Twitter for Quinton. I like it. Spelled your name right, too. For Quinton, does he expect more inventory to come on once folks are back in school, especially now that rates have dropped? Where his family is looking.
Absolutely, and I would like to take rates out of that discussion. I expect more inventory to come on because part of our travel nightmares is everybody's just pent up and tired of being home, and we still have a lot of cash. So you're seeing a lot of people on vacation. You know, I've seen it in our agent population. I've seen it in our client population. Part of my curiosity about Keith and Yonna's flights is because I know so many people that have been traveling, and you want to get that travel in, and then you want to get back, and you want to get the kids in school, and we'll see more come up. Some of the increase in inventory is not necessarily more houses appearing, it's fewer buyers taking them off the market. So if you think of it as, think of it as Hoover Dam. We've got a bigger inflow than we do outflow, and so the water level's rising, and I think that's really going to benefit buyers as well. There is a balancing point, and we just haven't quite reached that yet, but as that inventory starts to come up and those days on market go up, we will find the new balance point together, sellers and buyers and agents and the market, and you'll see things start to move forward again. Personally, I'm ecstatic that we're seeing it move this way because what you had before was accelerating towards a hard stop. If you have prices accelerating so fast and houses selling so fast, the clientele in the market that really need to sell their house and buy something else no longer see space to make that move. Just the decision making and the ability to know where you're going to live if you do sell your house starts to grind that to a stop, and you end up with this kind of real estate logjam. So this slowing of things and this sort of taking a breath, as much as I know everybody wishes they got the maximum price when they sold a house, and I know every buyer wishes they had 2%, in the long term, for the health of the market and our population over the next 3 to 5 years, this is the best thing that we could have happen.
Well, and the agents like it too. They prefer it this way.
We would rather actually be able to use negotiating skills as opposed to playing gladiator.
Right.
Yeah.
So the agents like the calming as well. Let's throw this to you here. And John Blair, welcome to the program. Thank you kindly for joining us in Stanton. Bill McKenzie watching the program. Do you think... And we're in the third quarter now with school starting. The expectation is we're going to see a little uptick in movement with the market, potentially more inventory as kids are back in school, parents are stopping traveling. Do you think that the Q3 is going to respond like a spring type market? We talk with Keith on this show, and he says third quarter is really important because the third quarter deals, as you know, everyone knows, close in the calendar year. The ones in fourth quarter often are turning over and closing in 2023. Mm-hmm. So do you see any kind of spring push for the fall? Anything like that?
I think that depends a lot on buyer confidence. We're seeing a lot of good signs in the economy, but I don't know that it has rolled over to consumer confidence yet. If consumers are confident about what's happening over the next 4 months, then yes, I think we have an opportunity to see a lot of buyers re-enter the market and a lot of sellers that didn't think they would have a place to go that now re-enter the market and do both sides of that transaction. So I think there's a lot of opportunity once we see this settle down a bit. Grain ships are leaving Ukraine, the price of gas is coming down, people are getting back from vacations. It's a great time for folks to take a deep breath, reassess where they're at, and based on where the market is now, what is possible for me to reach a different goal in my life.
Donna Patton says, I'm so ready for a more balanced market. For real estate firms, I see on the show today. What do you make of the jobs report? You said it today. I'll read the headlines, the 3 headlines to the viewers and listeners. This is from this morning, guys. In fact, this was published, this was released at about 8:45 this morning. Payrolls increased 528,000 in July, much better than expected, and a sign of strength for the jobs market. Non-farm payrolls rose 528,000 for the month, and the unemployment rate was 3.5%. The expectation was 258,000 and 3.6%. So incredibly positive news here.
And let's think about this for a second, and this is why I think consumer confidence is going to go up. What was the biggest growth segment out of the jobs report?
Oh, man. I didn't read it. I would say, is it, let me see if I can figure this out. F&B or hospitality?
Leisure and hospitality.
Okay.
Single biggest growth sector, which was also the one that took the biggest hit from the pandemic.
So that makes sense.
So let's read into this. Let's pretend I have a crystal ball that actually works, or I'm just clairvoyant, which I often like to fantasize that I am.
Well, you often have proven that you are.
Well,
You often have proven that you are. He has that skill.
We'll talk about palm reading later on a different show. But
this guy, very DL and behind the scenes, is a superpower player in real estate in this region. I'm just going to leave it at that. He's very humble most of the times when it comes to this. Here, Quinton Beckham.
He exaggerates for the sake of a show. But so we haven't seen the market crash. And by market I mean the economy. Yes, we have some signs that aren't really great, but we should expect that. There's a war in the Ukraine. We've got supply chain issues. Prices have come up. That seems pretty par for the course for where we are. But you do have people traveling again. Look through real estate agents' feeds. Aaron Garcia's one. They're all over the world getting on planes and traveling and doing stuff. And they're also spending more money here at home, which has created this need to hire more in luxury, leisure, hospitality. Restaurants are booming again. We're seeing a lot of the stuff return to pre-pandemic places, which is exactly where we want it. If you feel good enough to get on a plane and travel to go to one of my favorite restaurants, because I like people to go to my restaurants, and we feel that good about it, what are the odds you're going to feel good when the kids are back in school and you settle and vacation's over and feel like, okay, now's the time to sell my house? Consumer confidence is something that is affected by all of these things. And so I think you're going to see a lot of that continue to rise. The mortgage rates dropping are great. The unemployment data being back to pre-pandemic levels is amazing. And in the midst of being soaked in so much bad news, I want you to know there's not just a light at the end of the tunnel. There is no tunnel. We're actually, through the vast majority of this.
We have a bullish Quinton Beckham on Real Talk here, on Real Talk with Keith Smith. I love it. And Keith reminds us that there is a crystal ball on set directly behind you if you'd like to pull out a prop.
There is that one.
It's in that white box.
I'm not sure if that one works for me.
To the left, the white box on the left if you want it.
I see it.
Just a suggestion, we also have magic wands here on set. So the data points that we've been highlighting today, the jobs number was fantastic. Unemployment 3.5%. Non-farm payrolls rose by 528,000. The expectation was 258K. We're talking oil below 90 bucks a barrel, WTI crude. The 30-year fixed with good credit is below 5%. Is inflation peaking? Is the economy turning? Something is happening out there. The S&P 500, the NASDAQ, higher for third straight week. I mean, we are positive today.
I'm trying not to break the crystal ball. I really want to play with this now.
Can you zoom in on QB?
It's kind of difficult.
It's heavy, isn't it?
It's heavy.
It's shockingly heavy. We also have a magic wand and a Houdini cap if you'd like that as well. That may mess up your hair, though.
I don't want to put a cap on, and I think me with a magic wand is too much of a stereotype.
All right, let's play this game. What does Quinton's crystal ball say?
I think going through the pandemic, you're just sitting at home watching the television and reading stuff online, and you're absorbing all this news. And people like to publish bad news because it gets more attention. You don't sit and stare at the freeway when traffic is flowing. You stare at the accident. And so economically, I think we've been doing a lot of that. It doesn't mean the accident didn't happen. It did. It just means that that's not the only thing that's happening. And so I would encourage people to, lift up your eyes and get a broader view of what's going on. There's a lot of good stuff happening out there. Do we still have work to do? Of course we do. Is housing affordability still an issue? Yes, like it has been for the last 6 years. Is inventory still an issue? Yes, like it has been for the last 10 years. Those things are still upon us, but a lot of folks in their individual lives now have options that they didn't have a month ago. And there's opportunities in this if we don't just give in to the dismay that we didn't get the high price or that we're paying a little bit of higher rate.
James Watson's loving what you're saying right now. You got people that are saying they have goosebumps after hearing you speak, and Judah adjusted the camera to get the crystal ball in the shot. Things are clicking right now on Real Talk. And did we mention that Quinton Beckham has got the best Hawaiian shirt I've ever seen on today?
I feel like I need Windex for the crystal ball.
Emily says literally he's giving you the fire emojis right now with the 100.
Emily's being so kind.
No,
Emily's awesome, by the way.
No, you know what it is? This is what it is people are craving good news. They're craving this because we've had so much of the not so good news for so long. For the entire year, they're craving good news.
This is true. I can remember we were probably 8 months into the pandemic. Remember when everything was just getting worse?
Yeah.
It was also this big election. There was a lot of attention and anxiety and whatnot. And I don't think I would have been surprised to see the zombie walk around the corner. I would have been like, well, okay, it was time for that.
I think we talked about that maybe on the show. What's next? The zombie apocalypse?
I was sitting there putting nails in a baseball bat, thinking, okay, here we go. And I do think it takes about 86 days to form a habit.
Okay.
If you can do something for 3 months, it can turn from something you've chosen to do into a habit. This applies to good things and bad things. We had a solid 18 months to sit and wait for the next infection rate, death count, government program that didn't work. We got into this habit of staring at that, and I think now we have to make a decision to not forget and ignore stuff that needs to be there to inform us, but we have to look up. You have to see the entire picture that's coming, and there is repetitively good news balancing out a lot of the bad news. Who would have thought we'd be this? I'm not even sure we're out of the pandemic at this point, but maybe we just don't care anymore.
I think that's what it is.
And as a bonus, yes, lots of people around me are getting COVID. I think that's true for everybody around Virginia anyway. And they're sick at home and they're fine. I haven't heard of huge hospitalization rates. They don't seem as bad. So this is good. This is where we expected to be. This is where we wanted to go. There's good news. Lift it up and remember that we're getting out of this a lot faster than we got into it, although it may not have felt that way at the time. The economy's better. Jobs are back. Yes, there's inflation. We were going to have inflation because there was just so much cash around. Yes, there's still supply chain issues because we turned off a lot of the venues by which we moved goods around and we couldn't turn them back on that fast. And, there's that disagreement in Europe over there. But grain ships are leaving Ukraine now. We're settling in. Nobody tried to shoot down Nancy Pelosi's plane. She arrived safely back in the country. There's a lot of things that are positives, and as much as I want to know the whole thing because I want to give good advice, we've probably spent a lot of time on what's hard and I would love for people to think of some of the good stuff that's going on. This is very unlike me. Donna,
no, I love it. I love this. I love this side of you. Donna Patton is calling you Swami Beckham. Jonathan has called you Nostradamus over here on the program. This is a really good question. This is from Stacy, who I believe is watching in Short Pump. You guys have said in the past on shows that with newer agents, they're going to experience their first true tough market. Calls you Mr. Beckham. Can Mr. Beckham offer us an update on how the newer agents are managing the shift?
Yeah.
Good question.
I was at a intersection the other day, and I stopped and I was looking at the cars that were parked around me, and I was wondering how all these children were old enough to have a driver's license. And then it dawned on me that they were in their 20s and I'm just old, and so I was seeing them with old eyes. So if you're like 14 to 26, to me, you all look the same. And not trying to be mean, just, getting old. So when we say new agents, what are we talking about? We do have agents that have, certainly, if you look at realtor membership across the nation, as the market heats up, as the volume of homes sell, as you would expect, the number of realtors, the number of licensed real estate agents increases to match that. We're going to see those volumes come down. It's not the death knell, it's just that we can't keep running at this hot at this rate. We're going to see those volumes come down. You're going to have some real estate agents exit the business. Maybe it was a side hustle and it's no longer there. Maybe they got into it and didn't like it. And on some occasions, they might not be in a place that provides good education, gives them good advice, and has a lot of opportunity for mentorship. I do think if you look at the agents, let's say, I'm thinking of several in my office that have only been at it 2 to 4 years. If they learned how to do it in an accelerating market that fast and be really successful, they can learn how to do it in a decelerating market just that fast. So I would encourage not just experience to be a thing, but just remember there's skills that go along with being good at negotiating, with identifying goals where we want to go, and absorbing information. And those skills are applicable in either market. So if they were able to absorb really good information and do very good work that focused on clients in the ascending and the crazy market that we had before, which really was sort of gladiator, it was the Hunger Games of real estate, they can do it on the other end too. And so I don't know that experience is the best qualifier, certainly one of them. And I would expect some agents that don't take that time or just are not interested, move on.
William Clark just shared the show, and more questions continue to come in. Let's throw this question to you. Can you give us some perspective into the type of contingencies that are coming back that he is seeing? He mentioned contingencies at the start of the show, and it seems like they are more prevalent now. That's a follow-up from Grayson for Quinton Beckham.
We're seeing all the typical ones that you might remember from 4 years ago. So we've seen several contracts come through with seller-paid closing costs. We have seen home inspections with actual home inspection contingencies and an opportunity to negotiate for repair. The complimentary seller possession after closing is probably a thing of the past. Sorry, Jason.
Jason Kirby dubbed the complimentary seller possession, and that name stuck.
We had a really long conversation about him making up new words and terms.
He made up a new term.
No more new terms, Jason. So I think you're seeing all of those happen and come back. And again, the best parts of real estate are about, it's like the Jolly Green Giant.
I think someone from the Public Works is doing some work on the street or something like that.
So if the roof kid's in, I love you all. It's been nice. We're seeing a lot of, most of a real estate agent's job, most of our job in real estate and how we make all these things work is all those things that don't have to do with price. So we do know price and financing, all that stuff's an issue, and there's rules around that, and we know how to make that work. But often, if you think back to your own experiences in real estate, all the good ones involved checking more boxes than just the price. They involved how easy was your move? Did you get to move and leave a vacant house in possession of a realtor who then took care of it and sold it like you wanted? Did you get something fixed that made a difference? Did you find the perfect house and have an opportunity to think about it and really make a good decision for yourselves. There's a lot of that middle ground, which is where we can do some of our best work. So I think you're seeing all of that come back as it was accelerating, as buyers were not given an opportunity to think. That middle ground kept just shrinking and shrinking, which is why I think of it as the gladiator, Hunger Games sort of. We weren't really negotiating anything. We were just fighting to kill off all the other buyers and win the house for you. Meanwhile, the sellers got to sit up in the box like Caesar, deciding thumbs up or thumbs down, and that's a bad way to do things. So we're getting back to this part where we actually have middle ground, and I think it's a great opportunity for good realtors to remind you that although we know what your house is worth, we also know that you're worth more, and that relationship and that opportunity to do these things that are intangible sometimes, but also amazingly valuable, really is where we live and thrive, and the good agents rise above.
Quinton Beckham just dropped a Hunger Games reference at the same time a Julius Caesar reference. While having a crystal ball in front of him, some delicious coffee, and one of the best shirts I've seen. I mean, the dude is on fire right now. He's on absolute fire right now. I made sure to tag Jason Kirby so we can get him in the mix. Let's throw this to you. The deals that you're seeing and the price reductions and contingencies that you are seeing, we've talked about and we've covered. What we haven't covered is the outer areas that saw so much popularity in that insane market. We're talking Augusta County, Waynesboro, Stanton, and Buckingham. We got folks like Kevin Yancey watching in the Shenandoah Valley as we speak,
Right.
John Blair in Stanton as we speak. How do you see the outer areas responding in the shifting market from a potential softening, or do you not see that happening?
Well, where's that softening going to come from? So if you're watching all the Charlottesville Area Association of Realtors statistics, we are seeing percentage reductions in Louisa, Nelson, that sort of thing. Those are really not reductions; they're just returning to something more normal. And there are two competing forces going on. So if you were talking about wintergreen, there was a huge bump in second homes being purchased. We know that from the mortgage data and from anecdotal information from realtors. But think about what caused that. We had a lot of cash in people's pockets. We had a lot of discretionary spending go away. You had a lot of tax breaks, and people couldn't do anything except sit at home, surrounded by their family and their children who were homeschooling while they worked from home, from their coffee table with their backs aching, staring outside at a world that they couldn't access. And so blend all that stuff together and you have both an economic reason and a
Quality of life.
and a quality of life,
Yeah.
personal, intangible reason that really promoted the second homes market so that they had a place to send the children so that they didn't have to drown them. And that has probably gone away, and we're seeing that as leisure and hospitality picks up. We're seeing that as people are traveling and spending nights in airports that they didn't expect to, and that system will catch up. At the same time, we still have a lot better price point in outlying counties that is going to continue to push buyers to those counties. It's going to
More affordable price point.
It's going to make it.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to make that value proposition really work for them, especially as you're seeing gas prices come back down. They're going to continue to drop as we get out of the summer driving season, assuming no meteor hits. I don't know, Houston. Sorry, Houston. Have you all been to Houston?
I've never been to Houston.
I have yet to have a good time in Houston.
Have you been? You don't like Houston? Houston bores you?
I don't dislike Houston. I probably don't have the right guide.
Why do you go to Houston?
I've often asked myself that
Is
same
that for
question.
Keller Williams stuff?
It was mostly when I was working in healthcare.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's been a while. So
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to pick on you, Houston, but you know, it's close to where that dinosaur impact hit. So I figured let's pick on Houston.
Houston
again.
getting a reference in the outer county analysis from Quinton Beckham.
But so yes, I think that we're going to see some drop off in some of the frenetic buying, but that's not unique to Waynesboro, Greater Augusta area. That's not unique. That's happening across the nation. What you are going to see is this sustained push as people are going for housing affordability. You know, the rates have come back down. We're talking about good and bad. So imagine like you were going to have to go to Louisa Green anyway, because that was where the most value was for your family and the size of house that you wanted, and that was part of that intangible decision. Now you get to do it without fighting with 20 other people for the same house. There's a lot of good in this. Is it perfect? No, but it probably never has been. It's all a negotiation, and it's all that middle ground is opening up.
So we have, this show airs, guys, across all social media. It airs on 15 Facebook pages at once. And we have people interacting with each other on different Facebook pages based on what Quinton Beckham is saying right now. I'm going to relay some of that live on air. Ashley says Quinton Beckham is a Renaissance man with Nostradamus-like qualities. Travis Hackworth is watching in Danville. Welcome to the show, Travis. Kevin Yancey says folks will keep coming to Waynesboro because they're not going to overpay for something that they can get that's much larger in his area. Kevin Yancey, we love when you watch the program and offer perspective on the show. And this question has come on the feed saying, let's face it, the city of Charlottesville is a coveted place to live, and this market will still be strong even with rates going high. There's a lot of truth to that, Quinton.
I don't think any market is weak. I think sometimes we get into marketing speak, so, coveted neighborhood, coveted school district, coveted this, coveted that. Not only is coveting one of the 7 deadly sins.
It is one of the 7 deadly sins.
It also means that other places don't have their own value proposition, and they don't have their own pluses and minuses. So although I know you're going to continue to see real estate marketing that says beautiful home in coveted school district, that's not going to go away anytime soon. I want you to remember that when you're making your own decision outside of marketing about where you're going to buy, when are you going to sell, everything has a balance of pluses and minuses, and it's really that personal stuff about your life that, when it's fed into the equation, makes the price less of a game changer and more of something that you negotiate based on your total needs and where do you want to be in 4 or 5 years.
Kevin had a CMA done on his house in Waynesboro. They paid $269,000, Kevin Yancey said, 4 years ago, and the CMA market analysis has it at just over $400K.
Yeah.
Kevin, if you need an agent, I think we can find you a few good ones here on Real Talk. So the outer county market, for those that are asking, the expectation from the man with the crystal ball over here that's being called Nostradamus on the feed is it's not going to soften. That you're not going to see softening for the outer counties. That's what you want to get out to the folks watching today's show.
No more than anywhere else. Charlottesville's slowing down because the market is making it slow down. Louisa's slowing down because Louisa's got a market that's making it slow down. We're seeing that all over the place. This is still, I think, a step in the right direction because we're back to making decisions based on facts and logic and actual numbers and our personal needs versus the panic buying. We went through a period of that where some of it was really good moves for people that were going ahead and entering retirement and taking advantage of a high market when they sold their house and moved areas completely. But now we're back to a place that actual day-to-day families and some of these 16 to 37-year-olds that all look the same to me that need to buy a house because they have kids and they want to be settled into a school district and build a life for the next 5 to 10 years while they do their contract job. This is now a place that you can compete in again. You're not up against 9 cash buyers that have no real limits because they don't care. They're never selling the house again.
New starts, questions come in on construction, new construction, and home starts. You guys have talked about on the show how we're not seeing the starts with new construction like we've seen or like we've need. Has that changed? A question for Quinton Beckham.
You've seen a lot more permits, but as we've talked about a lot, there's a big time lag from permit to shovel. And I have heard tell of developers intentionally buying things where they feel like the development process is going to be a year, maybe 2, because they want to see where a lot of the volatility settles out. Lumber. Remember lumber went up to like $6 a board.
Yeah, it was
and is
obscenely
now
expensive.
And
it's
is
come
now
down.
back down, but
Yeah.
still 75% more expensive than pre-pandemic. Steel that comes out of China, and China shut down. There's some really valid reasons that are good for consumers for developers that don't have projects that are almost done to take a pause. Remember when this was first happening, there were buyers that had to back out of their new home construction because the developers were forced to pass along these $20,000, $25,000, $35,000 price hikes.
Yeah, cost of goods increases.
That they didn't know were coming and nobody knew was coming.
Right.
So I think a lot of developers are being responsible and sort of taking a breather. Also with the lack of skilled labor, a lot of the projects that are in the works right now are already using up the skilled labor pool. And so there's opportunity there. I think UVA may have just finished up this year's selection for its training program to come in and become journeymen and masters for electricians and plumbing. We still got K-Tech going, and Albemarle County Fire Department also looking to sign people up for the next year's schooling and training to become firemen.
Quinton Beckham, guys, dropping knowledge on the show. Where's the new construction you're seeing besides the 29 North project? Because I haven't really seen a ton. I mean, there's houses here and there.
There's a lot of proposed developments in and around the city that I don't want to get too specific about.
Okay.
Because they are just proposed and we do have some connections to them, so I don't want to breach those walls. But most of what you're seeing that are larger, higher density developments are probably in a 2 and 2.5 year window at this point. There's also a lot of rental housing, which is really important to us.
Yeah.
That's going up in the northern end. Is that Berkmar Drive?
Yeah.
Berkmar. So I think we're going to see some of that play out. I think it's important for us to let some of that open up and this calm down before we decide what the next step is. And you're seeing developers do that, and you're seeing some of that sort of take a breath.
Donna Patton.
Not gone, but take a breath.
Take a break, yeah. Donna Patton says every house she showed over the weekend at Lake Monticello is now under contract, and she says inventory is still very low at Lake Monticello. Donna Patton, good knowledge.
Inventory hasn't gone up dramatically. We're excited. When you're starved, you're happy about 6 crackers. And so just remember, this is the real estate market we're in, and it's starting to lighten up, and I want us all to be happy for that. The rates, some of the other things we've seen are helping promote this and move it forward, but we're readjusting to the new normal. People are becoming more reasonable. And if you're out there selling your house, please be reasonable. Let's look at data together and really make an informed decision that embraces your personal needs, but is maybe divested from emotional content, because I think it's hard to just wrap your head around this. And when you're really anxious about something is the time you don't want your real estate agent to be anxious.
Kelsey says, do you and the agents in your firm think that rates will go lower or higher? And for how long? That's a tough question.
Yeah, that's a hard one. We were talking about this before the mics were on, about how we still have the same economic levers that we had in the 60s, and they don't seem to be as firmly attached with globalization and the amount of unpredictable things that are going on in the world right now. And so I think that is partially true. I also think it's true that as we are seeing central banks in other nations start to up their rates, there's an opportunity that will help balance for us, but I don't know that they're going to go as fast as our Fed is. So I still see more rates coming. And remember that one of the tools to cool inflation is for the Fed to just talk about raising rates, because, again, consumer confidence. If I tell you, hey, I'm going to make this more expensive, I'm going to make life more expensive, you're less likely to throw money at things, and that's really what we're looking for to calm inflation. We're seeing a lot of good numbers, though. And so, yes, they're going to go up. Understand that every raise does not directly correlate to a raise in mortgage rates. You just saw mortgage rates go down, so you know I'm not lying. I don't even need this prop for that. And there's the opportunity for the lending market and the real estate market to absorb that, but also sort of do their own adjustment. So, yes, up, probably not as bad and dramatic as what you've seen.
This is a good topic right here. There's a finite amount of dirt in Charlottesville. When does Charlottesville realize that they have to build density with that finite amount of dirt or go up And if they don't, the folks that run the city will have to continue living outside the city. So going up in density is a hot topic in Charlottesville, regardless of the day of the week.
So, I'm not even sure that's a real estate question. That's more a question of community support and political will.
Yeah. Is the political capital there is the question.
Up to now, there has not been enough political capital and community push to make this a real thing. I'm from Southern California. If you go way back in time in Los Angeles, it was not the size of Rhode Island. And they invested in freeways. There's a lot of reasons and for that it was freeways and not trains, but different story. And it resulted in this big sprawl and a lot of suburban communities that then had to build up their own grocery stores and everything around them. And you can drive for 6 hours in Southern California, passing from city to city to city without ever a breath in between, because they just bumped up against each other. So I think that for all the folks that are engaged in this conversation in and around the city, when I look at the varying consequences of what we do, if we start now to have intelligent, thoughtful discussion about where density needs to go, understand that sometimes the character of the neighborhood or the city does need to change. There's things that we can hold on to. But if there is a character of Charlottesville that I really want Charlottesville and surrounding counties to embrace and make a priority, it's taking care of their citizens and their people, and that means creating higher density housing in ways that is affordable, so that you don't turn into another Atlanta or Los Angeles that is sprawled over so many miles with underbuilt freeways and connecting system and poor public transportation, that you just increase all the problems that we're facing right now.
That's a great take right there.
So there is a balance in that. Do you need to have single family housing? Of course you do. But you need duplexes, and you need townhomes, and you need row houses, and you need condominiums, and you need high density apartment complexes as well. And we need them at such a high rate. Inventory has been working against us for a long, long time. And if you think of a lot of the issues that we face in terms of city budgets, social causes, affordable housing and housing affordability, our best way out of it is to have more housing available in a smaller footprint. And I know there's a lot of reasons that people resist that. There's also a lot of advantages to it, and nothing is ever perfect. We were just talking about how a housing market is two sides of a coin, and we have to remember that there's two sides to this conversation as well. Yes, there's certain things that feel good about keeping a bedroom community a single-family bedroom community. You have to balance that against the fact that we still need more density. We need people living closer to where the jobs are, and that opportunity for us to reduce the number of people that are in brittle poverty, one transmission, one tire failure away from not being able to pay their electric bill or put food on the table. And one of the best ways to fix that is to get them closer to where they work so that they're less dependent on that. So I think there's a whole lot in that conversation, and it's really, really plausible for either side to oversimplify it and say this is always bad and this is always good. And much like the middle ground we do in real estate transactions, neither one of those positions is right, and neither one of them moves the ball forward. So we have to come closer to the middle on this and find appropriate ways to move that ball forward.
When you see Quinton Beckham around town this weekend, make sure you give him props, because this man is absolutely killing today's show. He is on fire.
He's just being nice.
No, I am not being nice. I am being accurate. Keith Smith and Donna Patton are interacting on different Facebook pages about Lake Monticello. I love the discussion, Donna and Keith. Keith says for Donna, active at Lake Monticello at the moment is 19 homes. 5 of them are new construction, aka paper houses. So 14 resales and 5 paper houses at Lake Monticello. We highlight the lake often because it has price points that are often that first-time home buyer price point at Lake Monticello.
Well, I think part of what Donna and Keith are trying to point out is that we're accustomed to there being 75 to 120 houses on the market in the lake. And so as a part of the follow-up to the density conversation, everything I said about the market getting better for buyers and smoothing out an inventory sort of increasing because of that diminishment in buyer pool is true, and it's still true that the pendulum has swung towards too many single-family, high acreage, not enough development. It's too far that way, and we need to drag it back to the middle at the same time that we're embracing the market slowing down. And I think the market slowing down actually makes it easier to have that conversation because it's just less frenetic in total. And much as Don and Keith are pointing out, we need to remember that our overall pool is dramatically reduced. And what does that mean for the next 3 years of economic development in the city? What does that mean for families that are growing up and people that need to move around? And we need to loosen up that system both by slowing down the market and having easier creation of density in the right places. I talk a lot about density, and we need to upzone.
You're a huge proponent of that.
I beat that drum a lot.
You do. So does Neil Williamson. Hello.
And me and Neil are right. Just whatever it is.
He's got the crystal ball.
I just want you to know.
When Judah laughs, I like when Judah laughs.
In fact, looking at this crystal ball and thinking of Neil's head, it's just when we're right on this particular point. And if you go to freeenterpriseforum.com and
look at him plugging one of the partners.
Look through the white pages, the reports that they have, the white papers. We've had multiple attempts at density that keep getting cut back. So for my history in Charlottesville this last decade, you can basically assume that every time a developer said, hey, I want to put down 100 homes, odds are, on average, they got 40 to 60 of those put down.
Breezy Hill.
And so those reductions over time, when you add them up, they might not have fixed where we're at, but it would certainly make it better.
Oh, huge difference. Huge difference. And not, we don't even have to go deep down this rabbit hole, but some of the political decisions made in the city of Charlottesville by leadership, where they pursued perfection with development as opposed to just getting some development out there, choosing the perfect route, which kiboshed the project altogether, or encouraged the developer to go buy right instead of getting creative with the housing stock. That has also impacted things around here.
I don't disagree. And I also think that we make it really hard in the city and the county to have really good intentioned, thoughtful people run for office, because we crucify them so regularly and often over things in big public ways. And, I wouldn't want to be in their seat. I wouldn't want to be the person facing them down, making their decisions.
Paul McCarter's got one for you of Avenue. Paul's in the game.
Hey, Paul.
Paul watches the shows often. We love you, Paul. We've dubbed him the king of Southside. Only true way to make affordable housing is to make smaller, cheaper, and denser housing. Also, you can't expect affordable housing to be built when the county also forces 25% of a project to not be used green space, private roads, and facilities that are a replication of what the county city offers at tax-paid parks. It's good points right there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything you said.
Yeah, Paul, that's good points. How does inflation, this is a good, interesting topic for you. How are these inflationary times impacting the ability for people to create and bring affordable housing online? Everything's more expensive.
A lot of what goes into making housing is one of two things, and that's local zoning and ordinance and commodities. So the commodity fluctuation we've seen that's so affected by things that are outside of the country has a big impact on that. I think a lot of, I would just go back to what Paul was talking about. There is a way to have green space and have smaller, denser homes that people will buy. And you have to remember that this is a 9-hour surgery. It's not a one pill fix. There is no way to very quickly do this. This is going to be stepping stones. So the apartments is it Rio Hill in the back of Berkmore, getting 300 more doors online is one baby step. Getting one more development, maybe in Locust Grove area, one more baby step. Having the market cool down and prices stop being so accelerated, another baby step. We just have to keep moving towards it incrementally. There is, if we got Albemarle County to suddenly, in spite of everything that they tell me they won't do, to suddenly open up the development area to, 10%.
It's 5% now, commercial
10%
and residential.
Now. Let's say 10%. They open up another area. Even that's not going to just suddenly fix this. We didn't get here in a year. This is something that has been going on for 20 years that has gotten us here. It's going to take more than one step to get us out, but we're never going to get out until we start taking those steps.
Dude, today's show was a breeze, an absolute breeze. All right, we'll close on this, Beckham. QB's crushing it. What's the crystal ball say for the rest of the year? Give us some closing thoughts.
I would tell everybody that we're going to continue to have mixed stuff. Watch out for your neighbors that are at the lower end of the income pool because they're feeling it a lot harder than you are. So if you're at UVA with your job and you're feeling the pressure, even with all the benefits and the support that surround you, remember that there's other people in your neighborhood that are probably feeling it harder. And so that's important to know. When we look at CPI, the CPI is really designed for middle class, which is a shrinking portion of our country. So all
Consumer
of the
price index, inflation, he's talking.
All the inflationary things that we feel, folks whose primary job is just to put food on the table and pay rent, they're feeling it a lot harder because it's a lot harder decision-making process. I choose to not go out to a restaurant very much. Other people are trying to figure out how to stretch a pound of ground beef to feed 6 people for a week. And so these are very different things, but they all have the same source. I think things are going to continue to slow down, and it's not going to be as bad as you think. And I would not be surprised if the global political economic situation didn't have one more sucker punch for us.
Dude, absolute breeze with you today. Twice this week was a breeze. And we're doing it next week. Keith and Yonna, guys, going to Seattle. Their youngest daughter, he said this, so I'm not speaking out of turn. Their youngest daughter is expecting. They're going out to Seattle to hang out with their youngest daughter and her husband. So I believe you're next week, one day, aren't you? We'll look at the calendar.
Next week is like,
right.
That's so far away.
I forgot what I had for breakfast.
Yeah.
You know?
Did I have breakfast? I don't even think I had breakfast.
When you see Quinton Beckham, guys, this weekend, tell him he crushed it on the show. Quinton Beckham, guys, is the principal behind Keller Williams Alliance and many other companies in town. He is also our friend, and we enjoy having him on the talk show. Judah Wittkower is the director. My name is Jerry Miller, and this is Real Talk with Keith Smith. All the shows archived online at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. Keith, we miss you, homie. We miss you, and we can't wait to see you again.
I hope you have a great trip, Keith.
Yeah, absolutely, Keith. And say hi to Yonna. We love you as well, distinguished gentlemen. We have the I Love CVille show up at 12:30, guys. Thank you for joining us with Real Talk with Keith Smith. So long, everybody. Good job, Quinton.